What's going on, guys? It's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA. In today's video, we got our very last weigh-in recap of 2025. We're going to end it with a bang. UFC Vegas 112 Royval versus Kape. Now, there weren't a ton of hiccups on this, so it's going to be a bit quicker than normal, and I don't have as many memes and whatnot because I wanted to get this video out to you guys ASAP. They did it pretty early today, so we're getting this video out quick. It's going to be a short one today, but anyway, you guys know the deal. Without further ado, let's get right into it. First up, we got Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Tereza Bleda. Now, I will say, both girls came in looking fine on the scales. This was the first time they had to make weight, and the only time they have to make weight with these smaller Apex cards. They make weight, and then an hour or two later they do the face-off, so it's a very short time period. You know, there's not a whole lot of time to rehydrate between the weigh-ins and the face-off, so you kind of get a really good look at how they were on the scales. So anyway, this is the first time they made weight. Now, Jamey-Lyn Horth was one of the last girls to make weight, but I will say she ended up looking pretty fine on the scales. She looked like she had a decent weight cut. Same with Tereza Bleda. You know, I was worried more so about her in this spot, but she ended up looking really fine. She looked ready to go, healthy as can be on the scales, so I'm not really too concerned about either girl in this spot. This was them at the face-off. Sorry, the picture is a bit blurry. It wasn't me. It was the damn live streams. They were terrible quality. But anyway, in terms of the face-offs, the size difference, honestly, is a bit closer than I thought. You know, I didn't think Horth was going to look a bit bigger than Bleda in this spot, but honestly, she kind of looks to be a bit taller. I don't know. Maybe it's just the angle, but size-wise, I think it's going to be a decent comparison between these two. We kind of knew that going into this, that it was going to be a bit of a weight bully versus weight bully. So who wins this fight? We will have to see. You got the slight lean for Bleda, but I will say between the weigh-ins and the face-offs, I can't really see a whole lot changes my opinion on this one. But next up, we got Frye versus Guilherme Pat. Now, it was a bit odd. You know, Guilherme Pat came in. It looks like he almost, like he has this blemish on his chest, as you can see. If you can see with my mouse there, put it, boom, right there. Now, I don't know what the hell that is. Is that staph? Is that not? I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you it is or it isn't, but it was weird. You know, I don't know what was going on with his chest. He didn't really seem to be too visibly affected by anything. He didn't seem bad by any means, but it was something that stood out to like, holy shit, what is that on his chest? So I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments. Is that something that looks like staph? I don't really know. Can't really tell from just this angle alone. But anyway, in terms of the scales overall, he seemed fine. Both guys seemed fine overall. Frye seemed a bit slow, a bit lethargic, but nothing too crazy. You know, I will say he came in at 242, Pat at 238. So you can see these guys really, I mean, compared to the two of them in terms of their overall size, Pat definitely seems like the more natural heavyweight. You know, he seems pretty lean for 238, where Frye definitely has some more fat on him. In terms of how that affects this fight, you know, I think it'll be an interesting scrap. Who wins this fight? It'll be interesting to see. You know, the pick's got to be Pat, but I don't know. Maybe he has a staph infection, maybe not. I don't know. You guys let me know what you're thinking. In terms of that face-offs, Pat had a bit of a, I don't want to say timid look to him, but not the most confidence in his eyes when they were doing the face-off. So I don't know how to take this one. This doesn't really affect my opinion all that much on this spot. These guys both look evenly sized. It should be a decent scrap. Low level fight though, so anything could happen. You can't be too certain for either guy in this spot. But anyway, next up, we got Corden versus Luana Santos. Now, both girls looked pretty good. Corden was one of, if not the very last people to, or no, she was, I think, the second last. Kape, I believe, was the last one. But Corden, one of the very last people to make the weight. And when she came in, honestly, she looked better than I thought she was going to. You know, we all know that her weight cuts are pretty tough. She's a big-ass girl, so cutting down to this weight is definitely not easy for her to do so. But I will say, when she ended up making weight, she looked pretty fine, ready to go. 136 on the scales for both girls. It's kind of crazy that they end up making the same weight. It is pretty mind-blowing to me. Corden definitely is a bit more lean. You can tell she has to cut down a bit more, whereas Luana Santos, not as lean, not as shredded as you can tell from her. So, but either way, both girls on the scales, they look pretty fine, ready to go. Nothing stood out negatively from either girl. I was more so looking at Corden in the spot, or she was someone that I was going into this expecting to really kind of, that's someone I wanted to look at, was see if she had a bad weight cut or not. So she seemed fine. Nothing really stood out to me negatively in the spot. This was them at the face-offs. You know, Corden didn't seem to be at that big of a size advantage in the spot. You know, I thought she might seem a little bit bigger. Maybe it's just the angle in this spot. I don't really know. But yeah, in terms of the overall size difference, she's definitely the bigger girl, as you can tell. Definitely has a bit of a height advantage going for her. But yeah, overall, size-wise, they seem more evenly sized, I guess, than I was expecting, but I can't really say it affects my confidence all that much. The only thing I was really looking for in this spot was to see how Corden, in terms of how her weight cut went, so it seemed to be pretty good from her, so I can't really say this affects my opinion on this fight at all. So anyway, next up, we got Sharaf versus Steven Asplund. Now, I will say, Steven Asplund, he does have the big old man titties. We know he lost a lot of weight. He was like a 500-pound dude that lost a ton of weight. That's why he got a little bit of extra skin on him. But I will say, you look at the man's face, I mean, he is extremely lean. I mean, it looks like he's really cutting down. If you just look at him from the neck up, I mean, he looks like a shredded dude. Like, he does not look like a heavyweight in terms of his face. So we know that he's been cutting. He's actually been probably doing some crazy work in the gym with the cardio. So it actually gave me a little bit less confidence because I had Sean Sharaf as the pick in this one. I wanted to see how both of these guys came in looking because we saw in Sean Sharaf's last fight, the cardio was a real problem. He came in a bit heavier. He's basically at the same weight that he was in that previous fight where he's been at. So I don't know how to take that in terms of the cardio. That maybe that could be a concern for me in the sense of I don't know how his cardio is going to carry out. You know, I thought in my eyes, or in my mind, I thought maybe Sean Sharaf would come in here a couple pounds lighter, you know, maybe in the 240s. Maybe at that point he'd have a bit better cardio. You know, maybe that could show us, okay, maybe he's a bit more lean. Maybe he's been really working on his cardio. It's hard to get a good judge of that with him, both of these guys being big-ass heavyweights. But we already know that Asplund does have good cardio, so I don't really have that concern about him. It's more so with Sharaf. So I will say, after the weigh-ins, my confidence has got to go a little bit. It's got to drop a little bit in our boy Sharaf here, just because I don't know how his cardio is going to be able to hang. The weight, you could argue, on the other hand, you could argue, well, they're very evenly sized. You know, a lot of people were saying Sean Sharaf is just not a heavyweight. He shouldn't be here. You know, he can't make this weight. He's going to get weight bullied in the spot. But you could argue 251 versus 261. You know, it's not like he's getting completely outsized in this. It's not going to be that big of a deal. So I don't really know how to take this. It could go either way. I'm less worried about his actual skill set, more worried about his cardio, because we know Asplund has holes in the grappling that have been exposed in pretty much every single opponent he's ever fought. So we know they're there. It's just if Sean Sharaf can actually kind of take advantage of those. If he has a cardio issue going into this, he's definitely not going to be. So in terms of the actual face-offs, size for size, they seem to be a pretty decent match. You know, I will say they look a lot more similar in size than I was originally expecting. And like I said, I don't know how to take that in terms of, should we be even more concerned about his cardio? Should we be confident, okay, now the size difference actually isn't that big? Maybe you have more confidence in him. Overall, I will say the thing that I was worried about the most would be the cardio, because Asplund is a boxer. You know, he's not some brute force wrestler. So I was never really worried from the size from the get-go. It's more so the cardio. So with him coming in this heavy, I gotta say it does lower my confidence a little bit in him. I will say it's a bit of a tricky one in this spot. But anyway, in terms of overall, I gotta say, yeah, it probably lowers my confidence in Sharaf a little bit, but we already had it as a very low confidence pick anyway. But next up, we got Magny versus Yaroslav Amosov. I will say, Amosov came in here looking like he's 45 years old. I mean, he looks older than Magny. We know he had to go back to Ukraine. He had to fight in the war there. So who knows the turmoil and the mental strain that took on that man. It's kind of interesting to see how it's really kind of aged him. I mean, he looked really old out there. I was surprised because Magny, crafty vet, he's been through a million wars in the UFC. We know he's getting up there. Like, he's starting to look older. But I mean, Amosov looked really damn old out here. I was like, holy shit. They got like a clone of this guy out here. It doesn't look like the dude that I saw when I was watching tape on him from a couple years prior. So this was them at the face-offs. I will say, not really a huge deal between the two. He looks a bit better in this one. And I will say, both guys seem to have really good weight cuts too. Not really a huge concern for either guy in this spot. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of jinxing it on here. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. But I will say, it's just like, damn, Amosov definitely seems like he's had some wear and tear on the tank. You know, so it's making me a tad less confident in him. Just seeing, I guess, how much he's aged within recent years. So I don't know. I just kind of have this thought in the back of my mind. Maybe it's the Jake Matthews fight. I don't know what it is, but Magny is like haunting my dreams. So maybe it's just that. But in terms of the overall weigh-ins and face-offs, not a huge deal, I guess. But I don't know. Maybe it's just the thought in the back of my mind of crafty Magny can pull off something. But anyway, next up, if you guys like the content, help your boy out with the algorithm and drop a comment, drop a like. It goes a long way. So thank you guys for all the love in the videos. I really appreciate it. Next up, we got Joanderson Brito versus Isaac Thomson. Now, both guys came in here looking pretty damn solid. I will say, it drops my confidence a bit in this fight just because I was worried about Isaac Thomson, you know, because like the other fight, like the other short notice fight, Bobby Green, that we're going to talk about in a bit, they did a catch weight. These guys decided, no, we're going to keep it at a normal weight. So I was interested to see how Isaac was going to look in the spot, how the weight cut was going to be for him, taking it on such short notice. Bro came in here looking absolutely incredible. I mean, he looked shredded, ready to go. I mean, he seemed to have a great weight cut. So that definitely has got to make me a bit less confident in Joanderson Brito, purely because I was expecting him to have a pretty harsh time making the weight. You know, I thought he might have came in overweight. I wasn't too sure there. So, I mean, Joanderson Brito, on the other hand, nothing to do with him. I mean, he looks fine, ready to go. Seemed to have a really good weight cut. Seemed perfectly fine. But I was very impressed by Isaac Thomson and his ability to make weight on such short notice. He looked absolutely great. In terms of the face-offs, the size is pretty crazy too. I mean, Isaac Thomson looks bigger than Joanderson Brito in this spot. He looks like full and like well-rounded, and like turns to like he's really filled out too. So I don't know how to take this one. It's got to make you a tad less confident in our boy Brito this week, just because I mean, Isaac seems ready to go. He seems like the big moment's not really getting to him all that much. He seems confident and ready to go. And Joanderson Brito is a scary MF. I mean, he's an intimidating figure. So the fact that Isaac's kind of taken this so easily so far, that at least for what we've seen, I really got I don't know, second thought on this one. I got to second guess this one a bit in the sense of, I don't know, Isaac Thomson pulling this one off, wouldn't it be a mind-blowing situation? So, I don't know, it could be another one of just looking too far into it, but I will say, overall, I am really impressed with Isaac Thomson. He seemed to make weight, and he looked really good. So, anyway, does it for this one. Next up, we got Amanda Lemos versus Gillian Robertson. Not really a whole lot that stood out to me from this one. Both girls made weight, looked totally fine, healthy, ready to go. They both seem to have great weight cuts. As you can see, Gillian Robertson completely shredded. Amanda Lemos still very shredded as well. This was them later on at the face-offs. They both seem ready to go. They meant business, size-wise, it's a lot better compared to like a Tatiana Suarez that Amanda Lemos just went against. So I think she has a better shot in this fight, or a much greater chance in this fight compared to her last one. So in terms of the pick, I can't say this affects my confidence level at all. The pick's Amanda Lemos, but it's been a very low confidence pick throughout the week. I can't really say this affects that either way for good or for bad. So I will say both girls look great. They seem like they're ready to go. Should be a fun scrap. Whoever wins, it'll be a close one either way. But yeah, I think Amanda Lemos might be able to pull this one off. But anyway, next up, we got King Green versus Lance Gibson Jr. I put it as King for this one, even though we're calling him Bobby. But anyway, both guys came in ready to go. I think Bobby Green was actually one of the first guys to make weight, so he had a really easy time making weight. As I said, they're doing a catch weight for this, so they gave Lance Gibson Jr. a little extra wiggle room, or I guess Bobby Green too. He took it on short notice as well. So anyway, both guys made weight, obviously 158.5. I don't know if that's what the catch weight limit was at, but either way, both guys ended up making the exact same weight. So they're both ready to go. They seem fine. I will say Lance Gibson Jr., he seemed really good. He seemed like he had a really good weight cut, absolutely shredded, mean, ready to go. Bobby Green, same thing with him, though. He seemed absolutely ready to go. Business as usual. In terms of the face-off, Lance Gibson Jr. is pretty damn big. I mean, I can't tell if the tattoos are really cool or like really kind of stupid. I'm kind of torn. It's kind of funny, but it kind of depends on. It's one of those tattoos where like if you're like a really good fighter, some tattoos are like, oh yeah, those are cool. Kind of like I can't think of an example. Like a Dan Hooker maybe. Actually, no, those are just sick. I like Dan Hooker. Like his big old chest piece is actually pretty tough. Even if he was ass, it would still be a pretty cool piece. But you get what I'm saying. Some tattoos is kind of like if it fits, it's cool. If it doesn't, it's not. It's kind of like a 50-50 on those, on these ones, at least for Lance. But anyway, in terms of the face-offs and the weigh-ins, both guys seem fine, ready to go. It's kind of, I have it at a trap for a reason. Not really super confident. Don't have a huge lean either way. Definitely going with Bobby Green, but will I be mind blown if he gets wrestle fucked for 15 minutes against the ASU former college wrestler in Lance Gibson Jr.? Bobby Green's pushing 40 years old. Would I be surprised if that happens? No, but at the same time, Bobby Green is the overall better fighter. He's proven it at a much higher level against much better competition. So even at 40 years old, or damn near 40 years old, you still got to go with our boy Bobby Green this week. I'm hoping he gets a nice little knockout, especially the short notice step up for both of these guys. I think it'll favor Bobby Green, who is the striker, as opposed to the wrestler in Lance, who is going to have a bit more of a difficult time pushing that pace for 15 minutes. So anyway, that's it for this one. Next up, we got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Marcus Buchecha. Talk about a dumpster fire of a fight. I mean, this is what we're looking at. In terms of this, I keep going back and forth with this one. It's tough. The pick has been Marcus Buchecha, but I will say I didn't love his look on the weigh-ins and the face-offs. He did not have the best look overall all around. I mean, he kind of looks a bit dejected, a bit washed. Not like washed like you're washed as a fighter, but just in the sense of like, I don't know. He just kind of seemed a bit tired, a bit lackadaisical. Not the best look from him in the weigh-ins or the face-offs. Kennedy, on the other hand, he looked really good. He seemed locked in, dialed. He seemed to make 243. It's a pretty good look for 243. He's not too cut in terms of like being too shredded, but he's not like fat and tubby. He seemed to have a pretty good weight cut. He seemed pretty healthy. He seemed like he was mentally focused. This was them at the face-offs. The size difference was pretty crazy. I mean, Kennedy looks absolutely huge. We know he's going to have a really big reach advantage in this spot, so the striking obviously is going to be in his favor. This one, I keep going back and forth on this one because on one hand, I really want to pick Kennedy. But it's just the black belt versus the blue belt thing, man. I just cannot get over this. It's just like that little obstacle in the back of my mind. I just can't quite pick flip on this one, even though my heart's kind of telling me to pick flip, even though my mind is saying don't do it. But I think Kennedy's very live. I mean, the size difference here is pretty apparent. As long as he can keep it on the feet, we know Buchecha's cardio doesn't look great. And the thing about Buchecha, too, is the cardio has always been a concern. So seeing him on the scales in terms of how his I know he's not really cutting that much weight, but just seeing how he looks on the scales, if he's fully like healthy, ready to go, confident, seems great, or kind of seems like this where he's a bit lackadaisical, a bit slow, is kind of a concern for me. So I will say overall, this does give me a little bit less confidence in Buchecha this week, and even beyond that, it's kind of just the matchup as a whole, not necessarily that just the weigh-ins and the face-offs are making me a little bit less confident in our boy Buchecha. It's just kind of overall. But anyway, this is going to be a tough pick. I mean, it's coin toss. Whoever wins, we'll have to see, but that does it for this one. Next up, we got Costa versus Morgan Charriere. Now, this was interesting. I will say, Charriere, he was kind of dogging Costa at the face-offs. I have a little clip that I'll put in here in a second. But yeah, in terms of the weigh-ins, though, they look fine. Both guys seem ready to go. I will say, though, in terms of who seems, I guess, more lean and mean, ready to go, Morgan Charriere means business, man. You can see this cut. I mean, he's shredded to the gills. You can see muscles on muscles. The dude is absolutely ready to go. Seems to be in tip-top shape. But Costa, I mean, this is usual for him. He's not the most lean and muscular guy. He's got a longer, lengthier build. That's kind of how he is. So I can't say it's anything unexpected or unusual from either guy. But I will say, Charriere looks great in the spot. In terms of the face-offs, though, I'm going to have a little clip in here. It was hilarious. Or maybe it's a screenshot. I think I just put a screenshot in here. Yeah, never mind. I did put a screenshot. But anyway, in terms of the face-offs, they both seem fine. Morgan Charriere was mean mugging his ass, though. I will say he kind of won the face-off. He was kind of mean mugging Costa a bit. This was him. He was like walking away as they're about to leave. And he does like this like eye thing of like, I'm watching you. It was pretty funny. And like, it wasn't a joke. Like he meant business. And Costa was not reciprocating the energy. Costa definitely seemed a bit timid, a bit on the back foot there. He didn't like any of that. So I will say, although does it affect the fight? No. It's just kind of interesting to see the psychology behind both guys, kind of see how they're acting in terms of their body language. So I will say in that regard, you got to give a little edge to Morgan Charriere. He seemed very confident in himself, ready to go. It's going to be a very good scrap. I'm super excited for this fight. But yeah, in terms of the overall confidence level, I think it's a coin toss to begin with, so I can't really say this affects it one way or the other. But anyway, next up, we got Cesar Almeida versus Cesar Nzechukwu. Now, both guys seem fine, ready to go. I will say, the one thing I was kind of looking at in the spot was I wasn't too worried about either guy making weight. As you can see, they both made weight. They're both totally fine, and they're not like lean, killing themselves to shed off an extra couple pounds or anything like that. They seem to be making weight pretty decently, easy, which seemed fine for them. This was them at the face-offs. I will say, Nzechukwu definitely had a bit of a nervous energy. You can kind of see it in his eyes here. He definitely seemed a bit more, I don't want to say nervous, but, a bit more reserved than I thought he was going to, because even at his young age, yes, he's making his UFC debut, but he's had over 50 total fights in terms of his pro and his amateur career. So, I'm not really too worried, or I wasn't too worried about him going into this, about him looking nervous or being anxious about his big UFC debut. But you can definitely see at least he's taking this very seriously. He's not overestimating his own ability. So you can look at it in a good sense of, he's not just thinking, I'm just going to run right through this guy. Not taking like the Joshua Van approach of like, yeah, I'm going to beat everyone. I'm going to submit Pantoja. Like, he's not taking that type of attitude in terms of how he's holding himself. So I will say, you could look at this either way. He definitely had a bit of a shy timidness to him that, I don't know, maybe it's not the best look, especially with the UFC debut. We see guys make their UFC debuts and we see them go south all the time. They kind of surprise people. So I don't know. Do I think this is that? Not necessarily, because this isn't the average UFC debut. I mean, Cesar Nzechukwu has had a world of experience, like I said, so I'm not really too worried about this being some huge moment that he can't handle mentally. He should be fine, ready to go. So overall, I can't really say this affects my opinions too much. Just wanted to point that out for you guys. But anyway, next up, we got Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos. This is the one that I do have a clip in. It was hilarious that when we get to the face-offs. But in terms of the weight cuts, both guys seem fine, healthy, ready to go. I think Giga Chikadze was one of the very, very first guys to make weight. He seemed fine, ready to go, healthy as can be. Kevin Vallejos, somewhere towards the middle of the pack, somewhere towards I believe towards middle end or maybe middle early. But anyway, it wasn't like either guy was waiting until the very end to make weight. They seemed to make weight very fine. They had a good time making it. So as you can see, 146, 145 respectively. They both made weight. Now, the face-offs were absolutely hilarious. This is where I'm going to have the clip going. Hopefully it's in here right now. It was hilarious. Giga Chikadze, or someone says like, like an Argentinian, or I got the clip in here. You guys can see it.
The best striking is in Argentina. Vamos arriba.
But I just had to include that in here. I thought that shit was so damn funny. So it was unrelated to the weigh-ins or face-offs, but it was pretty damn funny. But anyway, in terms of the face-offs, we knew the size difference was going to be pretty apparent. Now, honestly, it looks a bit better than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be kind of crazy. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen pictures on Instagram that were like comparing the two guys, and they had these just like outlandish different sizes for them both. It was kind of funny. So maybe it was just that kind of made me think it was going to be a bit worse than this. But I will say, we knew he was going to come into this with that disadvantage with the height and the reach. But when you saw him face to face, face. It was actually a lot better than I was expecting. So I can't really say this affects my opinions one way or the other. Kevin Vallejos, our boy, we will beat Giga Chikadze. We will get our hand raised. We will win. So anyway, next up, if you guys have made it this far, it's completely free to subscribe and it helps a ton with the channel growth. So thank you guys for all the support. Next up, in the main event, we got Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. Oh my God, Manel Kape was spazzing out here. It was very annoying. God, I can't stand him. But Brandon Royval, our boy, came in 126 pounds, looked fine. He made weight very early, so he was ready to go. On the other hand, Manel Kape was the very last fighter to make weight. As you can see, he got some udders on him. I mean, he could wear a bra. It's kind of crazy. Maybe that's just why he has a tough time making weight. Maybe he's taking a little special sauce. I don't know. But either way, both guys ended up making weight, 126 pounds. Brandon Royval definitely seemed a bit more sunken in the face, as you can see. But at the same time, he had a little bit more time to rehydrate later on. So it was a good sign for our boy Brandon Royval. But Manel Kape really seemed fine. I mean, 126 pounds, he made it, looked fine, ready to go. Not really cutting all that much, as you can see from him visually at least. So not really too concerned about either guy. They both seem fine on the scales. This was them at the face-offs. I'm going to have another clip in here. Hopefully it's playing right now. It was absolutely crazy. I mean, Manel Kape was spazzing like a madman, jumping around like crazy. I mean, it was kind of like Marab if he was just an asshole. That's kind of where we're at for this one. But anyway, hopefully the clip is playing or it already played. But yeah, overall, I will say nothing really stood out to me a ton. I mean, Manel Kape was definitely trying to big bro Brandon Royval. You know, he's definitely trying to get in his face, kind of intimidate him a bit. And you could say it was kind of working a bit in the sense. I don't know. It definitely was kind of getting to him a tad bit. But Brandon Royval, he ain't no wuss. Brandon Royval, tough as they come. So I'm not really too worried about this. And I can't say overall that this affects my opinion either way. In terms of the face-offs, you know, Brandon Royval is an absolute beast. So I'm not worried about him getting mean mugged by Mr. Milkers here. So anyway, in terms of the overall pick, though, it's got to be Manel Kape. But I hope our boy Brandon Royval can get the job done. But anyway, guys, this is how I originally had it. You know, this is how we had it from the Locks and Traps video. In terms of the picks and the confidence levels, this was after you guys had your lock that we took a vote on with the poll. We had our boy Kevin Vallejos at the top. And I will say, after everything, you know, Magny versus Amosov, in terms of how my confidence levels have changed a bit after the weigh-ins and face-offs, Amosov seemed really old out there. I mean, it seems like the real wear and tear throughout the years of fighting, it's kind of added up to him a lot faster than I was expecting it to. So I'm not really saying this is a huge deal to me. It would just definitely caught me off guard in a negative way, and he seemed to be a bit kind of old out there. I don't know how else to say it. So it may be a tad less confident in him just because we know Neil Magny still got it. I mean, he's still a crafty veteran. He could beat anyone, or not, maybe not anyone, but he can beat a lot of people, especially in the top 15. Amosov hasn't really proven that yet in the UFC. So maybe it's just that. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's the Jake Matthews shit kind of making me second guess it. But anyway, other than that, Brito versus Thomson. Slightly less confident in Brito just because we saw Isaac Thomson had an amazing weight cut. He seemed totally fine, ready to go. That was something that I was kind of expecting. You know, maybe I expected him to have a worse weight cut, honestly. I didn't think he was going to look that good, that ready to go. So it's going to make you a tad less confident in Brito because Thomson seemed like he had an entire training camp to prepare for this one. I mean, that's how good of a shape that he looked to be in. So got to make you a tad less confident there. And then in terms of Sharaf versus Asplund, Sharaf coming in this heavy, 250 something, you know, it worries me about his cardio. And I was expecting, I was hoping he might look a little bit more lean. You know, maybe he might drop a couple extra pounds to kind of show, okay, he's looking a lot more lean. That could give me a little more confidence in his cardio, but he didn't. He came in just as tubby as last time, so I gotta say that does lower my confidence in him quite a bit, because now I'm like, all right, the cardio is really even more of a concern and a question than it was prior to this. So anyway, for that one, for Green versus Gibson Jr., Gibson Jr. came in looking really shredded, ready to go. I mean, I was worried about him with the short notice weight cut, you know, and he seemed pretty fine. He didn't seem to have any real issues making weight. We weren't worried about Bobby Green. We knew he could take a short notice fight because he's a striker. He can keep it on the feet, and I'm not too worried about his cardio, whereas we're more so worried about Gibson Jr.'s cardio being the wrestler, and that's his way to win in this fight. So maybe a tad less confident in Bobby Green just because Gibson Jr. seemed totally healthy, ready to go, totally fine on the scales. So who knows how his cardio is going to hold up. And finally, Kennedy versus Buchecha. Buchecha didn't look great on the scales. The size difference is huge between these two, so I really think if Kennedy keeps it on the feet, he's going to whoop some ass. Buchecha didn't really seem to be fully at 100% from the weigh-ins or the face-offs. He kind of seemed off, so I didn't really like the look from him, so that kind of gave me a lot less confidence in him this week with this pick. But anyway, guys, that does it for the weigh-in recap. I hope you guys enjoyed. Last one of the year, so hope you guys like this. We're going out with a bang. We'll be back next year, though. Next year, you know, we're coming with the weigh-in recaps for every single UFC card. So if you guys like the content, drop a like, drop a comment, hype it up, subscribe if you're new here. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for all the love on the recent videos. I'm going to have the best bets video coming out here soon for you guys, so let me know your thoughts on that. If there's any spots that are sticking out to you this week that you like or you don't like, let me know in the comments below. But anyway, thank you guys once again for all the love on the recent videos. It's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'm out, so peace.